It was an ordinary afternoon in the small town of Skidmore, Missouri. A place so small that locals left their doors unlocked and everybody knew your name. But on December 16th, 2004, something unthinkable happened, something no one could have imagined for this quiet rural town. Bobbie Jo Stinnett, a 23-year-old dog breeder, was found lying in a pool of blood inside her home. Shockingly, she had been 8 months pregnant at the time. At first glance, it looked like a brutal murder. But what authorities discovered next turned this already horrifying case into something far more chilling. Bobbie's baby, her unborn child, just days from entering the world, was gone. Not miscarried, not stillborn. Gone. Someone had cut the baby from her womb and vanished. But who would do something so unthinkable, and why? The truth is more twisted than anyone could have imagined. This is the chilling story of Bobbie Jo Stinnett. Bobbie Jo Stinnett was born on December 4th, 1981, and grew up in the small town of Skidmore, Missouri. Although the exact dates of their wedding are unknown, it is known that by 2004, 23-year-old Bobbie was newly married and living with her husband, Zeb. The two continued to reside in Skidmore and had dreams of building a life together, including starting a family. Bobbie was passionate about animals, especially dogs, and together with her husband Zeb, she started a small business called Happy Haven Farms, where they bred and sold rat terriers. Both Bobbie and Zeb also worked at Kawasaki Motors Manufacturing in nearby Maryville to supplement their income. As part of her dog breeding business, Bobbie was active on an online forum called Ratter Chatter, a community for rat terrier breeders. Bobbie was well known among the group, and fellow breeders described her as sweet and caring. But the page wasn't used just for dog talk. In 2004, Bobbie excitedly shared some personal news with the group. She was pregnant. Her baby was due in January 2005, and the forum celebrated with her. Around the same time, another breeder in the group, Lisa Montgomery, from Melbourne, Kansas, also announced she was expecting. Lisa told a grief-stricken story about how she had originally been pregnant with twins, but unfortunately, she had lost one of her babies. She told the group her due date was in December of 2004, just a month before Bobbie's, but not everyone believed her. Members of the forum grew suspicious. Lisa regularly attended dog shows, yet she didn't appear to be gaining any weight. She wore the same clothes and moved as if nothing had changed. Something just didn't add up. Still, Lisa and Bobbie connected online. They bonded over pregnancy symptoms, swapped ideas for baby names, and talked about what they were buying for their newborns. But here's the terrifying truth. The members were right to be suspicious. Lisa Montgomery wasn't pregnant at all. Lisa had been sterilized in 1990 after the birth of her fourth child, a procedure she would later claim she was forced to undergo by her husband and her mother. Lisa knew she couldn't conceive, but that didn't stop her from faking it. She faked ultrasounds and even convinced her husband and family that she was due in December. In April 2004, Bobbie and Lisa met in person at a dog show in Kansas. Bobbie had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. Lisa acted friendly and warm. To Bobbie, she was just another breeder with a shared passion for terriers. Months passed, and then in December of 2004, Jason Dawson received an email from a woman named Darlene Fisher. Jason was a breeder of rat terriers and a friend of Bobbie, who he had gotten to know through dog shows. He was also a member of the Ratter Chatter forum. He had never met Darlene Fisher before, but it wasn't strange for him to receive emails from people he didn't know about puppy adoption. Darlene asked Jason if he knew of anyone in Missouri with puppies up for adoption, as she wanted to get one to give her kids for Christmas. Jason, thinking he was helping someone out, recommended Bobbie. He knew she had a litter of puppies that would be ready just in time for the holidays. He gave Darlene her website and email address. Soon after, Darlene Fisher contacted Bobbie directly through the Ratter Chatter forum to arrange a visit to the puppies. That visit was scheduled for December 16th. On December 16th, 2004, Zed went to work at Kawasaki Motors, leaving Bobbie home alone with the dogs, waiting for the arrival of Darlene Fisher. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Around 2:15 p.m., Bobbie was on the phone with her mother, Becky Harper. She told her a woman was coming by to look at the puppies soon. At around 2:30 p.m., Bobbie heard a knock on the door and told her mother that the visitor had arrived and that she had to go. Little did Becky know that this would be the last time she would hear her daughter's voice. When Bobbie opened the door, the woman standing on the other side was not who she had expected to see. She opened the door instead to a familiar woman. It was Lisa Montgomery. But before she could invite her inside, Lisa barged in and overpowered the heavily pregnant Bobbie. She wrapped a length of cord around Bobbie's neck and began to strangle her from behind. Bobbie, 8 months pregnant, fought for her life. Evidence later suggested she may have briefly lost consciousness and then regained it during the attack. When the struggle stopped, Lisa shoved Bobbie onto her back. She grabbed a kitchen knife and made a deep incision across her abdomen, cutting into her womb. Then, she did the unthinkable. She removed the unborn baby, a little girl, from Bobbie's body. Lisa wrapped the newborn in a blanket, walked out the front door and got into her car. She drove away, leaving Bobbie alone, bleeding and fighting for her life on the living room floor. At 3:30 p.m., Bobbie's mum, Becky, came by to see her daughter. The front door was unlocked. What she walked into was a nightmare. There was blood everywhere. Bobbie was lying on the ground unconscious. In her fists were strands of long blonde hair. Becky ran to the phone and called 911. She told them that it looked like her pregnant daughter's stomach had exploded. Despite Bobbie being 8 months pregnant, here was no sign of the infant anywhere. Paramedics arrived instantly, but were unable to revive Bobbie. She was pronounced dead at 4:27 p.m. It was concluded that the infant was likely alive and likely in distress after a traumatic birth. The investigation into Bobbie Jo Stinnett's brutal murder and the kidnapping of her unborn baby began immediately. An Amber Alert was sent out for her unborn child. They had to find her quickly. Authorities knocked on doors, asking if neighbors had seen anything suspicious that afternoon. One neighbor recalled seeing something strange. At around 2:30 p.m., they had noticed an older, dirty red car parked in the Stinnetts' driveway. They didn't recognize the vehicle at all. FBI agents joined the investigation and began combing through Bobbie's emails. They focused on messages from someone named Darlene Fisher, who had recently contacted Bobbie about purchasing a puppy. But when agents tried to track down this supposed buyer, they hit a dead end. There was no record of anyone named Darlene Fisher matching the information provided. The FBI turned to digital forensics. Using computer tracking tools, they traced the origin of the emails to an IP address in Melbourne, Kansas, a rural home registered to Kevin Montgomery, the husband of Lisa Montgomery. Just one day after the murder, Lisa and Kevin visited a cafe in nearby Topeka. Beaming with pride, they introduced friends to the newest member of their family, a tiny newborn girl named Abigail. Lisa told everyone she had gone into labor unexpectedly while out shopping the previous day and had given birth at a women's health clinic in Topeka. The baby, though small, appeared healthy. Their friends were none the wiser. No one suspected a thing. Meanwhile, back in Kansas, FBI agents set up surveillance outside the Montgomery home. They were on the lookout for a specific vehicle, an old red Toyota Corolla that matched the description given by Bobbie's neighbor. Soon enough, the car appeared. Lisa and Kevin Montgomery pulled into the driveway. Lisa was cradling a newborn baby. Agents approached the couple and followed them inside. They calmly began asking questions about the baby. Lisa repeated the story she'd told friends. She had delivered the child at a clinic in Topeka just the day before. But the agents already knew that wasn't true. They had contacted every hospital and women's clinic in the region. None had any record of Lisa Montgomery giving birth. Faced with the evidence and nowhere left to run, Lisa broke down. She confessed to everything. She had strangled Bobbie Jo Stinnett, cut the baby from her womb, and fled with the newborn. Kevin Montgomery was stunned. He genuinely believed his wife had been pregnant and had no idea what she had done. Investigators quickly determined he had no involvement in the crime, and he was not charged. Lisa Montgomery was arrested on the spot and charged with kidnapping, resulting in death, a federal offense that carries the possibility of the death penalty. Lisa Montgomery's trial commenced in 2007 in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri. During the trial, she pleaded not guilty to the charge of kidnapping resulting in death, despite having earlier confessed. If found guilty, Lisa would potentially face the death penalty. Lisa's defense team argued that she was legally insane, stating that she had suffered a lifetime of mental illness due to physical, psychological, and sexual abuse that she received as a child at the hands of her stepfather and her mother. The stories they would hear were pure evil, stuff straight from horror films. At just 11 years old, her mother began having servicemen come to the trailer to build a new living room. But instead of money, she paid them with something unthinkable: her own daughter. Lisa was repeatedly assaulted in what her own mother called a family secret. Her stepfather was no better. He constructed a room off of his trailer, accessible only from outside of it. He would force Lisa into this room where he would, in his words, teach her how to be a good wife. He would sexually assault and sodomize her until she bled. These two horrific stories are just the tip of the iceberg of the evil that Lisa suffered. Lisa also suffered from fetal alcohol syndrome as a result of her mother drinking heavily from the time Lisa was conceived to the time of her birth. Despite these heavy claims, much of Lisa's abusive past was not shared with the jury during the trial. The full extent of her trauma only came to light during the appeals process, long after the verdict had been reached. Legal experts and advocates argued that if the jury had been fully informed of her truly horrific upbringing, the outcome may have been different. On October 22, 2007, after just 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Lisa Montgomery guilty of kidnapping, resulting in death. 4 days later, they recommended the death penalty. The claim that she was insane had been rejected. Lisa was formally sentenced to death on April 4, 2008. On January 13, 2021, at 1:31 a.m., Lisa was executed by lethal injection. Once Lisa had confessed to kidnapping the baby was taken to the hospital, where she was reunited with her father. Zeb named the baby Victoria Jo. After a short stay at the hospital, Zeb took Victoria home. She has since grown into a healthy teenager and still lives in the Skidmore area with family, who do their best to protect her privacy. Her birthday, however, will always fall on the anniversary of her mother's death, a constant reminder of a family shatter by the hands of another. Bobbie Jo Stinnett was a young woman, gentle, kind, and excited to become a mother. But all this was taken from her within just a few violent minutes. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a calculated betrayal of trust. And while justice was ultimately served, no sentence, no matter how final, can ever return what was lost. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think justice was served with Lisa's execution, or should she have received a different sentence? Let us know in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.